Hello and welcome to this episode of the Divorce Diary. I'm Farhana, Divorce Doula, and I am joined today by Charles, family lawyer at Warner Solicitors. Hi Charles, how are you doing?
I'm okay, Farhana. Farhana, I thought it'd be really interesting today to talk about the concepts in what you and I do of winning and losing.
Oh, definitely. This is a very juicy topic. And I'm sure for our listeners as well, it's going to perk your ears up because this is it, isn't it? You know, we're not just talking about divorce and separation, but from the very beginning, as a relationship starts to break down, it is this whole underlying theme of winning and losing and who's right and who's wrong and whose fault it is. And it's just not helpful, is it?
It's not helpful at all. And I know we're not going to talk about a huge amount of law today because we're actually going to talk about how people feel and the way it affects people. But
Yeah.
one of the things, of course, that happened recently was the change of the divorce law, which took away the blame game. And hopefully that's a help in actually not having this mentality that I've won or I'm the better parent or whatever, and getting away from the winning and losing. And I think what I wanted to say was that for us as lawyers, of course, we see it very clinically, so we don't see it as winning or losing at all. But I think what you will tell us is that you know from human interactions, that's the problem, isn't it? It's very much seen like that.
It is. And, you know, I know before, Charles, we've had conversations and I've had many conversations with family lawyers that really ultimately what you want is for a case where, you know, two parties are compromising to get the best outcomes for the individuals and their families. Yeah, absolutely. And from a rational, grounded position, that's what we all want, right? But the reality is that divorce is an incredibly emotional, often traumatic grieving process. And it is really challenging to reframe away from this winning and losing mentality. And that is because, like you said, humans going through a human experience. And this is not just any human experience. This is not something that happens on a day-to-day. And for a lot of people, something that you don't even experience in a lifetime.
Well, I think that's the point, isn't it? That the lawyers, we see it very rationally because it's not our lives. And the difficulty is that whilst we can talk to clients and say, come on, try and make a rational decision, it's all that emotion means that actually they can't take a rational decision. And that's why we have from the lawyer's perspective, the sort of rational or unhelpful behaviour. But what you will tell us, of course, is that's just the reflection of how people are feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it isn't unhelpful that you have this rational, you know, you're coming from this rational stance where you want to have compromise, because in the reality that is what we want to have, but that's just part of it, right? We're working with a whole human being here, where we're not just looking at the logistics and the legal side of things, but we are working with a human who is experiencing the emotions as well, the whole person. And that's what I want to highlight in today's conversation, is for anyone out there who's listening to this episode who is, especially if you're at the beginning of the breakdown of a relationship and considering separation, and maybe even at the stage where you're considering divorce, is that society often will signpost us to how to protect yourself, how to get the best for yourself, and how to make sure, sadly, that the other person gets what they deserve.
And we've seen that, haven't we? Because we've touched on it in earlier episodes about people posting on the internet, on the social media, about he must get what he deserves or that sort of thing.
Yeah, take it to court, you know, get justice, you know, protect you and your children. That happens a lot, and it often comes from a good place. It's well-meaning to protect the individual. However, it doesn't give you the outcomes you necessarily want. And what is more important to highlight is that the process itself to getting those outcomes can be even more damaging. And so what I really want to talk about today is that when we're going through a breakup and moving through the process of divorce, the first thing that we often do, and I did this myself as well, is be looking for that legal advice and that legal direction and, you know, how to protect myself and my children first. That's the first thing we want to do. But actually, that is not the place to start.
Because you're not in the right place mentally,
Exactly.
emotionally.
Exactly. Emotionally and mentally, whether you're aware of it or not, you are not in a place to be having those conversations yet.
And the difficulty is that then potentially derails you from being on the right track to making the right legal decisions, doesn't it?
Exactly. So people often come to me, or I'll hear on forums going, family lawyers are a whole, you know, waste of money because, you know, they can't really understand what I want. They're not listening to me. They're not on my side, and it's really expensive. You know, my first session cost me this much. I can't afford another 8 sessions of this to get to where I want to. What they're not realizing is that actually it's not necessarily the family lawyer or the mediator that is the problem here. It's that you as an individual are not
In the right place.
the right place emotionally. You know, that's not your fault. You are experiencing a very real and often a really traumatic experience. And sometimes we need the right guidance to get us into a better state of well-being so that we can have these really important conversations with family lawyers and mediators.
And I think, you know, it's often very obvious to me, not always, but it's often very obvious when you have a new client into the ones who are just emotionally not ready.
Yes.
Yeah, who are just, you know, in an awful lot of pain.
Yeah.
And I always say to those clients, look, please think about who can help you. Please talk. You know, often you get the impression that they're isolated. As you say, maybe they're feeling embarrassed. Maybe they feel they can't talk about it even with their nearest and dearest, like their mum and dad or their siblings. And what I would say to all those clients is, look, we will do everything we can to help you, but maybe you're not quite ready for us yet.
Yeah.
Have you thought about going, you know, sometimes it's talk to your mum and dad, talk to your therapist, talk to your doctor, but actually, I think what we are discovering from our discussions is that some of those people, they're not actually in the right place either.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that point up. It's a really valid point. Is to talk to your mum and dad, go and see the doctor, go and see a therapist, and immediately that can really trigger anxiety in an individual, because what they may or may not have experienced is going to a doctor. Well, is there something wrong with me? Are you telling me I'm unwell now? Are you telling me I'm not capable now? There's something else for me to worry about. And then they go and spiral off into a whole new rabbit hole, which is not helpful for them, even though it's well-meaning from yourselves.
Yeah.
So it's just a stigma attached to go and see a therapist or go and see a doctor. We immediately go to that. There's something wrong with me. There's more wrong with me.
It's my fault the marriage is breaking down.
Yeah, especially if
I'm unwell. None of that's going to help.
Exactly, especially if you're carrying a lot of that guilt and shame already, which is not uncommon. Also, in my own experience, when I was going through divorce, and what I've heard from so many of my clients is, my sister, my parents have told me, you know, go to court and get justice for you and your children, because what he or she did was not right, was not okay, and he or she needs to get what they deserve. So they're also emotionally invested in you and your family, and they're giving you advice from a very emotive space. They too are feeling very vulnerable, and they want to protect you the best way they can. It's not necessarily the best advice. So that is why going to somebody who is neutral and can hold safe space for you, and those safe boundaries for you as well, and give you that objective advice is so important. And
it takes away the pressure.
Absolutely, it takes away the pressure. And also, you know, listeners, I don't know if you can relate to this, but certainly I found with myself and with my clients as well, the reason that people love working with me as a divorce doula is that they don't feel guilty.
Yeah.
They don't feel guilty talking to me and being able to do that brain dump, or being able to just
They don't feel like they're being judged.
They don't, absolutely.
Or managed against. It's the problem, of course, whilst it's great to talk to family or friends or mum and dad, there's all that back history, isn't there? All that expectation. You know, they were often people who were there on the wedding day. So actually talking to someone completely independent like you, there's no pressure to give the right answer.
Absolutely. And like you said, you know, there's no judgment, because what we can do, consciously or not, is you go and talk to friends and family when you're going through, you know, this really difficult time in your life. And what you do without realizing it is that you start to self-edit what you're saying as well,
Yeah.
for two reasons. One is that you're trying to protect the other person. You know, you don't want them to feel bad or guilty or worry for you. And you start to self-censor for yourself as well, because actually you don't want to admit some of the things that you're experiencing.
Absolutely.
And you know, you're in that place of denial and you don't want to be judged. Whereas when you are talking to somebody who is neutral, whether that be a divorce doula like myself, or a therapist, or a divorce coach, or a mentor, whoever it is you choose to go to, where you are investing in yourself and talking to a professional, you can remove all of that. You know,
you can be yourself.
You can be yourself. There is
you can
no
admit your
censorship.
mistakes.
Absolutely, and you can be that real, authentic, vulnerable
Because
being that you are.
That's the reality, isn't it? Nobody's perfect in their marriage. We all make mistakes all the time in our relationships, including those of us who are, you know, married or not. And as you say, it's being able to actually let go and be honest and, you know, really give the full facts, as it were.
Yeah, just see yourself. You know, as a divorce doula, I often say to my clients, I'm your mirror.
Yeah.
You know, I'm your mirror. I'm standing up. I'm holding you here. Reflect it. You know, say it out loud and hear it and see it for yourself and accept what is going on for you right now in all its rawness. It doesn't mean that's how it's going to be forever, but this is where we are right now. And why are we talking about this today? We're talking about the emotional side and being able to be in a better space of well-being for yourself before you go to the legal side, because when you are in a more grounded place in yourself, in your body, you feel more confident, have more clarity of thought. When you are in a space where you're just accepting, this is where I am right now, I am feeling really vulnerable, I am feeling really judged, I am feeling really scared, I am feeling really confused. You've had those conversations in a safe space with somebody. When you know where your 2 feet are right now, that's when those legal conversations can start to really count.
Yeah.
That's when your money is being well spent.
Absolutely. Rather than going round and round in circles because you feel so uncertain about what the future holds.
Exactly. So that's why I encourage anybody who is considering even divorce right now, considering separation, because that feels like the only option, is to seek some initial advice from people like myself. You know, there are lots of different options out there, and please do refer to the show notes to see where you can explore different areas to go and get advice from. But the reason I say, you know, come and see somebody like myself is to make sure that you're not wasting your money on professional advice when you're not ready to receive the kind of advice that you need, or you don't have clarity of what you actually want. But also to help you to just get yourself accepting the situation and feeling confident about what you actually want, so that when you do go and get some advice from whether it be a mediator or a family lawyer, in yourself you have a clear
You're ready
idea.
to take decisions.
Yeah, you're ready to take decisions and you know what you want. And so you're not just handing the baton over to the professionals who will just give you the best legal advice for you, but you're also saying, I've got my power, I'm in the driving seat, this is what I want, and now what I want from you in exchange is for you to give me the best guidance given what I want.
You feel ready to be responsible for your own life choices rather than sort of handing them over to someone else.
Absolutely. So you've got that where you feel like you're in control of your choices rather than just handing it over to somebody else. But also, listeners, you're going to be saving yourself some money because you're not wasting time and your money talking to professionals when you're not ready.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And certainly in the past, I've had many clients and cases where it was very obvious that the client was still in a quandary. And as you say, it was only when they were ready to make those decisions that they felt able to take them.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely a big part of that is be feeling that you've got what it takes to make your own decisions rather than sort of passing it over to the lawyer.
Yeah.
Because we'll try and help, of course we will, but fundamentally the relationship is that we give the advice and the client makes the call, makes the decision.
Yeah. So what I would just say, you know, to anyone listening out there, it's not about the winning and losing. It's not about who's right or wrong. It's about you understanding what you want for yourself and taking back the power that is available to you, feeling grounded, feeling confident in yourself as you move forward and reimagine a life for you after divorce. And the other thing I'd like to say is, what's the rush? Once you have decided that this relationship is irreparable and that separation, divorce is inevitable, it's to just take a moment, take a step back to get yourself in the best place of well-being before you move forward. Even though you may feel that, I just want to get this over and done with, I just want to move on with my life. If you are not in a space where you feel safe in yourself and have that clarity of mind where you're not being completely paralyzed by anxiety and fear, you are in the long run going to move a lot faster to get the outcomes you want, rather than just feel dragged along by your need to survive and actually find that you can't because fear and anxiety keeps you stuck.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
I echo that absolutely.
Yeah.
That clients who are in the right emotional place are going to find it much easier to handle the difficult legal questions and challenges than those who are still struggling to come to terms with the breakdown of their relationship.
Absolutely. Brilliant. I have loved this conversation. Thanks so much, Charles.
Thank you, Farhana. Thank you for watching this episode of the Divorce Diaries.
This series focuses on casual chats about divorce with myself, the Divorce Doula, and a number of professional family lawyers from Warner Solicitors.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Divorce Diaries, please check out any other episodes available in the series.
And please do comment below if there are any particular topics you'd like to talk about or if you have any questions.